Welcome my friends, I am Miranda and you're here with May Yoga. Today's video is going to be specifically tailored for people looking for tips on how to be nice to your knees. So anyone that has knee issues, a history of knee problems, or maybe you're coming back from a knee injury or surgery, this is going to be something kind of tailored for you. All right, so you will need some props here. We're going to be doing some modifications. I'm going to show you ways to protect your knee and also to strengthen the ligaments around it, the muscles and everything that support your knee. So you will need some props. I highly recommend you have at least one nice pillow, maybe a small towel or a blanket, and then a block or two are going to come into handy as well. I'm going to show you different modifications, different levels to go into poses. All right, so if this is your first time practicing with me, please check the description below this video for a link for a separate video called Tips for a Safe Yoga Practice, and watch that first. For now, the props can go off to the side, except for that yoga block I want you to have nearby. So we're going to start in standing because I want to do a little talk with you for people that have knee problems. We're going to talk about standing positions and also bent leg positions. The important thing to remember in your standing position is that you never want to hyperextend or lock your knees. Now, knee is a hinge joint. It's only meant to go bending and flexing, right? So you want to think about, you don't need to lock your knees back. So when you go into a straight line, that's fine, obviously. But when you're going past that 180-degree line for your knees, you're in the risk of hyperextension. And what happens is it's more than just into your knees. It's actually a displacement of the bone. So what happens is that you've got your femur part of your knee, the upper bone, and then your tibia part down here. And what can actually happen in hyperextension is that the tibia, the lower leg bone, can actually go behind, displace behind the femur. And when that happens, you're putting a lot of pressure on your PCL, your posterior cruciate ligament. You're causing possible knee laxity, and you're going to run into a mess of issues. Kind of a way to help prevent this from happening is keeping a bend in your knees. So for anyone out there that has some knee sensitivity, this is a nice way to kind of protect yourself from that hyperextension. Keep a little bend in the knee. Allow the placement of the bones to actually go to your ankles, which is where it's supposed to be. And that kind of holds the alignment of your bones. Keep that bend in the knees, just a little micro bend, nothing too deep. Be soft on your knee. Allow that springiness into your legs. While we're standing, I'm also going to show you a strengthening tip. Now, this was actually shown to me by one of my yoga gurus in India during my teacher training. So I've had knee problems. Anyone who knows me well, you know this. I've had knee issues my whole life. I did gymnastics for years growing up. I was on dance teams. I was a runner. So I've got a lot of knee problems. I actually affectionately call my knees my Rice Krispie knees. So if you're familiar with the Rice Krispie cereal, how they snap, crackle, and pop, those are my knees. And I've had to develop ways to kind of protect myself and to strengthen the muscles, in particular the quadricep, and just strengthen this area to kind of take the pressure out of my knees. All right, so I have crepitus, which is crunchy knees. And this is a nice little trick that my yoga guru, one of my gurus, taught me. It looks a little awkward, it's gonna feel a little awkward, and imagine being in front of a class when this was being done to you, if it makes you feel uncomfortable. Just imagine it could be worse, you're at home, you're fine. So you want a yoga block here. And what you're gonna do is you're gonna have the thin part facing out, and you're basically gonna put this in between your legs as high up as you can so that the bottom part of the block is above the kneecap, okay? So it's gonna look silly, I know, it's gonna look weird, but you're gonna shove that block in between your legs and you're going to squeeze. Your feet are parallel to each other, so they're pointing towards the front, and you're squeezing this block with your muscles. This is a static pose. This is something that I like to do. I know it looks kind of silly probably when I do it, but I like to do it maybe when I'm washing dishes or I'm just like sitting. You can do this seated as well if this is too much to do while you're standing. You can do it seated, sitting on the computer. And just this constant pressure, this constant squeezing of the muscles, it's going to strengthen these muscles. It's going to, by effect, take some pressure out of your knees. All right, so yes, it looks kind of weird and it might feel a little weird too, but this is a great simple way to help your knees, okay? So that's a nice little trick you can do with just your regular yoga block. Next, we're gonna talk about bent leg positions. So to be safe with the knees, I'm gonna show this to you here. When you hear teachers, we talk about going into a lunge. We talk about the placement of your patella, your kneecap, in these bent-legged positions. So what you want to do is you want to always keep the patella, keep the knee tracking so that it's over the center of the ankle and your second toe. So you can kind of look at your feet, see where the center of your knee is, and track it towards that second toe. The important thing about this is that a lot of times you see in weak ankles or maybe imbalances in the hips, what happens is that the knee tends to fall out or in. You're collapsing the knee one way. And the problem with this, what you run into the risk of doing, is actually hurting the ligaments, again, that run along your knee. When you do this and you bring injury into the knee, you're actually putting strain on the ACL, the anterior cruciate ligament. It can lead to other knee issues like chondromalacia, a whole bunch of mess of problems that you obviously don't want to come into. So always be aware when you're ever in a bent-legged position where your knee is pointing. Have it pointing to the front, have it pointing over towards that second toe. Okay? So little tips for you there. Next, we're gonna come down to seated. I'm gonna show you some lovely modifications. Again, ways to protect your knees, ways to strengthen your knees in a seated position. So I'll see you there. All right, everyone, moving on to the seated part of this video. You do want to have your props near you, that small towel, a blanket, the pillow, the blocks, everything kind of close by. Like I said, this is not an intense practice. It's just a way to show you some good tips, good way to avoid injury in the knees and to, well, nourish the knees. All right, so to start, I'm going to show you child's pose. Now, it's a very basic pose. It's a lovely resting pose. The problem is with people that have knee limitations is that it is a hyperflexion of the knees. You are sitting down on the knees with them severely bent. So if you do have problems in the knees, this can actually be very challenging for you. So a nice little modification you can do is actually using that towel or using that blanket. I'll show you from the side. So remember, in child's pose, we're seated back on our heels, we open our knees as wide as the mat, and then we go forward. Some of these people out there, this is really hard for you. So a nice way to kind of do a little variety of that is to bring a block into it. Simply bringing that block underneath your seat, sitting up on it so that the bend in your knee is not as intense. And then you can still bring the hands forward, drop the head, and relax. I know it's not as relaxing as a normal child's pose, but if that's what you need to do with your knees, then you need to do that. You can also maybe bring the block down a little bit if this is comfortable for you, and you can hold it and do the same thing where you walk your hands forward and drop your head. Another variation you can do if you don't need that much height is to bring the towel or blanket into play. So you're going to bring it behind the knees, kind of tucking it into the back of the knees there. And what this does is it does just kind of prevent you from sitting too far down, from going into that deep flexion into the knees. Again, from here, walking the hands forward, dropping the head into child's pose. Okay, while we are here on hands and knees, I want to show you tabletop pose, which is a very popular pose in yoga. Now, it's something you can do lovely stretches like cat-cowing, you can work the hips, you can do extensions with it, but a very lovely way to kind of hold a tabletop pose and to take the weight out of the knees is to go from your normal Varmasana, your normal tabletop, which is hands under the hands under the shoulders and knees under the hips, and you're on the ball of the feet. A way that you can kind of help bring the weight out of the knees is to simply point the toes and push the shins into the mat. And you will automatically feel the weight coming out of the knees. You're displacing the pressure onto your shins, onto the front of the legs, and therefore you're protecting the knee joints. Okay, so this is just a nice little simple modification you can do going from your regular tabletop to a little modified one. You're still able to do all of the benefits of tabletop, all of the stretches, but doing it in a more gentle manner on those knees. All right, so next I want to show you Malasana, which is a squat, yogic squat. Now it's a lovely way to open the hips. It's an amazing stretch, but it is again that very strong flexion in your knees, which can be very hard if you have those knee issues. So Malasana is usually your feet are about as wide as the mat, you're sitting down, and your hands are at your heart. So again, this is quite intense for people at times, but if you still want to get the lovely benefits of malasana into your hips, but you want to protect the knees, again, this is where your block comes into play. So go ahead and have both of them maybe. And what you want to do, you can come into this from maybe being sitting on those knees, and then opening your knees up, bringing the block on the highest level so that your sit bone connects to the block, and then very gently bring one foot at a time. So you want to imagine that your feet are about as wide as your mat, and then you can bring your hands together at your heart, opening your knees. From Malasana here, you can do a lot, and like I said, if this is wobbly, if you don't feel very steady, you can always use another block. You can kind of stabilize yourself maybe near a wall if you need that support. But what's lovely about Malasana is you can do a lot of shoulder work here. You can maybe have one hand on the inside of one leg and the other arm reaches out to the side, and this kind of opens up the chest, opens up the shoulder. The whole time you're doing this, you're going to be getting that benefit into the hips that you get from Malasana without overdoing those knees. All right, so this is for people that really, if you are in classes maybe, or if you're trying to do a home practice and you are finding difficulty being in squats, in child poses, I want to show you these modifications. All right, so next I'm going to show you a modification for pigeon pose, which is a lovely pose and it's very popular in yoga. So to come out of this, again, come out of it any way you like. Just be nice and gentle on yourself. Release the blocks off to the side. So yoga classes love pigeon pose. We do, because it's an amazing hip opener and we always love to do work on our hips. However, again, we're going into that deep bend in the knee, which can be very difficult. I am going to show you pigeon pose and give you some pointers if you want to try to help protect your knee. The important thing in pigeon pose is that you always keep the leg that is bent, the leg that you're using, you keep that foot very flexed. When you flex your foot, I'll show this here. When you're flexing your foot here, you're actually helping maintain a straight line in your leg better. And this reduces your risk of torsion, of twist in the knees. When you go into pigeon pose, the focus is going to be into the hips, and that's where it should be. And it's going to be an external rotation of the femur. That's where you want the twist to come in. What unfortunately happens a lot is if people are pointing their feet and they're not being very mindful of their knees, is what happens is that the twist goes into the knee joint, again, inviting a whole mess of problems that you do not want in your life. All right, so when you're going to pigeon pose, I'm gonna do this really, really easy way here, just coming from a down dog, and then you're going to bring up one leg into pigeon pose. You want to make sure, actually, let me do this other one so you can see this foot better. You do want to make sure that that foot stays very actively flexed, okay? So you're keeping this line into the leg, you're putting the rotation, you're putting the twist into where it's supposed to be, and you're protecting your knees. Now, if you are doing a practice and they ask for pigeon pose and you're like, no way, Jose, that's fine. You don't have to do this. I want to show you some little variations that you can do to still work the hips without risking the knees, okay? So coming up out of this, and I'll just go over to the side here. So one variation you can do that is a great hip opener and does kind of the same motion with less risk to the knees is thread the needle, all right? You guys are probably familiar with this, but I'm gonna show this to you really quick. To do thread the needle, you're gonna be on your back. So coming to the mat, we're gonna be doing the right leg, so I can kind of show you this. You're drawing the right leg in towards the chest, flexing the right foot, the same as you do for pigeon, and then externally rotating the leg so that it goes into the hip, protect the knees, the right ankle goes to the top of that left quadricep. Staying here, if this is good for you, you can kind of use your right hand to gently push on the right leg, not on the knee, above that knee, kind of pushing on that right leg, kind of opening the hip a bit more. Or if this isn't good enough for you and you want to go a little deeper, if that is available to you, you're going to thread the needle. So your right hand goes in that triangle space that you've made, the left hand goes to the outside, and you interlace the fingers on the top of the shin or maybe on the back of that hamstring. Okay, so again, the same tips, the same important advice you want to remember is about this foot. The left foot, doesn't matter, but you can keep it flexed as well if that'll help you to remember to protect your knee. Keep both feet flexed. All right, so this is one modification you can do for pigeon pose. The other one is going to be actually fire log pose, which is Agni Sambhasana, which is actually one of my favorite seated positions to do. I love it, love it, love it. It's a great hip opener. You want to have blocks or maybe that pillow nearby to give you a little bit more cushion. So Agni Sambhasana, some people call it double pigeon because you're doing that formation with your legs, one on top of the other. So to do this, you come from seated, your bottom leg is going to be shin is parallel to the side of the mat, to the front of you. And then you're going to draw the top leg so that the outer ankle comes on top of that knee. And then the top knee comes towards the opposite foot. Now this can be very intense. You want to have your sit bones too, those little bones in your butt, the two bones connected to the mat. So this can be very, very intense for some. Nice way to sort of alleviate if you're feeling pain. Obviously you're not supposed to feel any pain. Discomfort is okay. Remember, one of my favorite phrases, joyful discomfort. That's okay in yoga. You're challenging the body, but you never want to be in pain. So a nice way to kind of help cushion you a bit is to bring a block underneath the knee, between the knee and the foot. Gives you that little bit of space, allows you to settle in. And of course, from Agni Sambhasana, you can just kind of sit, relax. You can bring your forearms down to the legs, maybe bring the hands in front of you, walk the hands forward as much as you like, drop the head. And this will kind of help you relax a little bit into this, allowing you to open the hips in a nice, gentle manner that does not invite injury to those knees. All right, so releasing that block. The last thing we're gonna do here is I'm gonna show you a great knee stretch. It's one of my favorite poses, and that is butterfly, Baddha Konasana. So to do this, start feet in front of you, and then you're going to bring the bottom of the feet together. Your knees will open like the wings of a butterfly, okay? Now, a lot of people here, again, if you're not very flexible and you need to have a little bit of cushion, grab a block, grab a pillow, something underneath the knees to support you so you're not hunching. Important thing here is you want to be sitting up nice and tall, okay? So doing what you need to, I'll show you with both blocks here, doing what you need to help support yourself so that you can have a straight spine. Your sit bones are connected. What this is doing in this lovely stretch is it is stretching all of the ligaments around in a safe manner to your knees. So this is a pose that I love doing if I'm feeling tightness, achiness, creakiness in my knees, especially in the mornings. Go into butterfly for a few moments and just sit. Here again, you can do some spinal twist work. You can do some side bend stretches. There's so many things you can do while holding your Baddha Konasana. You can also, of course, go into that forward fold, which we'll do now if you like with me. Just walk the hands forward, feeling that beautiful stretch into your knees. Dropping the head and closing the eyes. And then of course, to come out of this, you just want to gently walk the hands back, bring yourself back upright to that seated position. And that is it for today, guys. I just wanted to show you some nice little modifications you can do, some tricks to help take the weight out of those knees, protect yourself when you're in certain poses, and of course that lovely little static strengthening pose with the block to start with. If you don't have a yoga block, you can use like a bolster pillow or a regular pillow folded if you need something maybe a little softer to kind of squeeze there and hold. It's just something you can do for a few minutes every day, again, to help strengthen those muscles and help support your knees. So if you enjoyed this time with me today, please feel free to hit that like on that video, subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and I look forward to seeing you again on the mat very soon. Have a lovely rest of your day, guys. Namaste.